For weeks, the regime in Iran actually believed that they held all the cards in the Middle East. They genuinely thought that by turning the Strait of Hormuz into a chaotic, terrifying choke point, they had finally found the ultimate leverage against the West. Sure, their mainland military infrastructure has been bombed back to the Stone Age. Sure, their missile silos are smoking craters. But as long as they had those swarms of cheap explosive-laden fast boats harassing massive oil tankers in the strait, they thought they could dictate the terms of this war. They thought they could hold the global economy hostage. Well, that arrogant illusion just came crashing down in the most spectacular way possible. The United States military just authorized a deployment so massive, so highly specialized, and so incredibly lethal that it is going to completely change the entire dynamic of this war overnight. Right now as we speak, America is sending Iran's absolute worst nightmare directly toward the Persian Gulf. We are talking about the one single scenario that the regime in Tehran prayed would never actually happen. The United States is actively laying the groundwork to put American boots on the ground. On March 14th, multiple global intelligence outlets, including the BBC, began reporting that the United States was rapidly diverting a massive new fleet of heavily armed warships directly toward Iranian waters. Now, ordinarily, sending a few more destroyers to the region is just standard operating procedure. We have seen America deploy massive aircraft carriers over the past few weeks to launch non-stop bombing campaigns. But this new naval movement is fundamentally different. It is not just about launching missiles from over the horizon. The ships currently tearing through the ocean toward Iran are led by the USS Tripoli. For those who do not track naval hardware, the USS Tripoli is not a standard battleship. It is a massive state-of-the-art amphibious assault ship, and it is currently carrying the absolute tip of the American military spear. It is leading an elite United States Marine Expeditionary Unit straight into the heart of the Middle East. When you see amphibious assault ships and heavily armed Marine Expeditionary Units moving into a combat theater, it is the loudest, clearest signal possible that the Pentagon is actively preparing for ground combat operations. According to defense analysts at the War Zone, this massive grouping of warships set sail immediately after United States Central Command received direct, explicit approval from the US Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, to deploy them to the region. What is currently steaming toward the Iranian coast is known as an amphibious ready group. This is a terrifying floating fortress. A standard amphibious ready group typically includes a massive assault ship, 2 heavy transport docks, and a dedicated support vessel. But the real threat is what is sleeping below the decks of those ships. They are carrying an embarked Marine Expeditionary Unit. Intelligence reports from the New York Times indicate that the specific unit currently en route is the legendary 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, consisting of at least 2,500 elite battle-hardened Marines. Right now, the USS Tripoli and its lethal escort ships are sailing out of their usual forward-deployed base in Japan, and they are not taking a leisurely cruise. Satellite intelligence trackers have noted that the USS Tripoli is moving at an incredibly high rate of speed. Analysts looking at orbital photos can actually see the massive churning wake behind the ship, proving that the captain has the throttles pushed to the absolute maximum. They are moving hell for leather to get to the Middle East. They were last spotted tearing through the Barshi Channel between Taiwan and the Philippines, and they are expected to arrive in the Persian Gulf within a week or two. But what exactly is a Marine Expeditionary Unit? And why does its arrival absolutely terrify the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps? In the military world, these units are universally referred to as America's 911 force. When the United States has an urgent, catastrophic global problem that needs to be solved with overwhelming immediate violence, this is exactly who they call. They were the very first conventional American forces to lay boots on the ground in Afghanistan back in 2001. They are completely self-sustained, rapid response forces structured to bring total devastation from the air, the ground, and the sea. Let us break down the anatomy of this floating nightmare. A Marine Expeditionary Unit is split into 4 highly specialized elements. First, you have the ground combat element. This is the heavy hitter. It contains a massive Marine infantry battalion, heavily reinforced with devastating artillery support, elite reconnaissance assets, combat engineers, and fleets of amphibious assault vehicles designed to storm hostile beaches. Then you add the aviation combat element. This provides absolute air superiority right over the battlefield. We are talking about squadrons of transport helicopters, deadly attack choppers, and the crown jewel of American air power, the F-35 Lightning stealth fighter jets. Finally, you have the logistics combat element, ensuring that once these Marines take a beach, a port, or an island, they have the supplies, medical care, and ammunition to hold it indefinitely. This is not just a handful of soldiers being sent to guard an embassy. This is a fully integrated elite strike force that signifies a total fundamental posture shift for the United States military. And the absolute center of gravity for this massive shift is going to be the Strait of Hormuz. For weeks, Iran has been wreaking absolute havoc in that specific waterway, and it is easy to see why. The Strait of Hormuz is a geographic nightmare. At its absolute narrowest point, it is only 31 miles wide, making it incredibly easy for the IRGC to patrol and harass with cheap, fast attack boats. But it is also the most vital economic artery on the planet. As of 2025, a staggering 20 million barrels of crude oil pass through that tiny stretch of water every single day. By unleashing swarms of explosive-laden boats and suicide drones, Iran has managed to almost completely shut down the global energy supply chain. The statistics are horrifying. According to recent reports, the IRGC has already violently attacked at least 16 massive commercial vessels, killing 8 innocent sailors and leaving 1 missing. Because of this reign of terror, only 77 ships have dared to cross the strait during the first half of March. To put that in perspective, during that exact same time period last year, over 1,200 ships made the crossing. Traffic has been reduced to a microscopic fraction of what it should be. The global economy is bleeding and Iran is holding the knife. But the arrival of the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit completely rips that knife right out of their hands. The United States is no longer going to play a passive game of defense. According to Secretary Hegseth, the Pentagon refuses to allow the Strait of Hormuz to remain a contested waterway. The United States has a plan, and that plan involves bringing overwhelming, undeniable force directly to the source of the problem. With thousands of Marines and a fleet of amphibious warships, the tactical options suddenly become endless. The first and most immediate option is total maritime security. The USS Tripoli was specifically built to be converted into a floating F-35 Lightning carrier. The United States can simply launch constant rolling squadrons of stealth fighters directly from the deck of the Tripoli to establish a permanent lethal umbrella of air cover over the Strait of Hormuz. The second an IRGC fast boat leaves the Iranian coast and F-35 vaporizes it before it even gets within visual range of a commercial oil tanker. But the Pentagon is likely thinking much bigger and much more aggressively. The US might use these heavily armed Marines to conduct devastating, lightning-fast amphibious raids on the dozens of small islands scattered throughout the Persian Gulf. The IRG secretly uses these tiny remote islands as forward operating bases to launch their drones and hide their attack boats. By sending Marines to storm those beaches, the United States can physically strip away every single launching pad Iran relies on, effectively blinding them and pushing them entirely out of the strait. And then there is the nuclear option, the scenario that the regime in Tehran refuses to even think about, a massive direct amphibious assault on Karg Island. Karg Island is the absolute beating heart of the Iranian economy. It is the launching point for an astonishing 90% of Iran's total global oil exports. During the initial bombing campaigns, the US dropped a few warning shots on the island, carefully avoiding the main oil terminals. But Donald Trump has explicitly warned that if Iran refuses to open the Strait of Hormuz, the US will stop playing nice with their oil infrastructure. Imagine 2,500 elite Marines storming Karg Island, physically taking control of the terminals and completely suffocating the regime's only remaining source of global revenue. But the ultimate, most controversial scenario involves exactly what the administration has been hinting at since the war began: using these elite forces to actively trigger the total collapse of the Iranian government. According to military insiders, the absolute wildest scenario involves the United States military directly partnering with the CIA and Israel's Mossad. The goal would be to use the Marine Expeditionary Unit to secure key coastal footholds, while deep cover operatives slip into the Iranian mainland to arm, train, and fund the massive, simmering political opposition. The Iranian people have been protesting this brutal, oppressive regime for years, only to be gunned down in the streets by the IRGC. But right now, the IRGC has been bombed into absolute oblivion by American airstrikes. They are weaker, more disorganized, and more terrified than they have ever been since the Islamic Revolution. If the United States uses this newly arrived Marine force to smuggle heavy weapons, tactical gear, and funding directly to the Iranian resistance, it could ignite an unstoppable, heavily armed revolution that tears the regime apart from the inside out. And you better believe that sitting silently in Moscow, Vladimir Putin is watching this entire situation unfold with absolute horror. For years, Putin has masterfully used the Iranian regime as his personal proxy to expand Russian influence, sow chaos in the Middle East, and distract the United States from his own military failures in Eastern Europe. The survival of the Ayatollah is critical to the Kremlin's entire geopolitical strategy. But if the United States uses this massive new amphibious strike force to neutralize the Strait of Hormuz, secure the oil flow, and trigger the violent collapse of the Iranian government, Putin loses his most valuable pawn on the global chessboard. The arrival of the USS Tripoli is not just another naval deployment. It is the beginning of the endgame. The United States is no longer just dropping bombs from the stratosphere. They are bringing the fight directly to the Iranian coastline. They are bringing the heavy armor. They are bringing the F-35S. And they are bringing thousands of the most lethal ground troops on the planet. The illusion of Iranian leverage is officially dead. The only question now is whether the regime will stubbornly choose to be destroyed from the air, or if they will wait for the Marines to kick the door down. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think the United States is actually going to pull the trigger and send these Marines to storm Karg Island? Or is this just a massive show of force designed to terrify the Ayatollah into surrendering the strait? I read every single one of your comments, so let me know exactly what you think happens next. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because the second those amphibious assault ships arrive in the Persian Gulf, all hell is going to break loose. And you absolutely need to be here for the breakdown. Stay safe, and I will see you in the next one.